Welcome to the Power of Faith with David Hathaway. In this episode, David will be sharing what he has learnt from over 70 years in ministry. A family of 5 fled from Melitopol. This used to be a peaceful and safe city in the south of Ukraine. But everything has changed. Now they live in a tiny room, 5 people in a few square meters. They need food, clothing, and proper accommodation. But they also need hope, faith, and love. Thank you for your generous support. It enables us to help the displaced in Ukraine. Now, please join David as he ministers today's word.
So he says, when he's speaking, God rested on the 7th day, and again, he raises the question as to whether people actually can enter into not the Sabbath, but the picture of the Sabbath, which is the 1,000-year reign of Christ. So what we're looking forward to is the reign of Christ. So in verse 6, he goes on, seeing therefore it remains that some must enter, and those to whom it was first preached didn't enter because of unbelief. So that, unfortunately, he's talking to the Jews here. Unfortunately, the whole question is this, that this very essence of the millennium and the kingdom was preached from the beginning, in type, in picture. But unfortunately, at the time Paul is speaking or writing, the Jewish people have not yet found that fulfillment. It's a future. So they didn't find it. Paul is very clear and very critical. They didn't find it because of unbelief. This was typified in one way by the 40 years that the children of Israel traveled in the wilderness. That was not just an allegory, it was a literal thing that happened, because after only 40 days, they reached the border of the promised land. Only 40 days. The distance, moving 2 million people with all the animals and all the equipment wasn't easy, but they still did it in 40 days. And then Moses sent out the 12 spies. You know the story. They all saw the beauty of the promised land. They all saw, and they came back with a report, a land flowing with milk and honey. That was describing the plenty. But then they said, but it's full of armies of evil people. How on earth can we go in? And 10 of them were so negative about entering the promised land. Only 2, Joshua and Caleb, who were faithful spies, said, yeah, we see the same difficulties, but by faith we can overcome. But because of the 10, and the people listened to the 10 in doubt, they wandered for 40 years in the wilderness till the whole of that generation died. Unfortunately, when I say unfortunately, this is quite a clear picture, because we're going to come up against this. This is what he's referring to in verse 2, as Paul is. He says, unto us was the gospel preached as well as unto them, but the word preached to them wasn't accepted by faith. Look, they were offered the promised land after 40 days, but didn't have the faith to go in and possess it. And there is a danger even with us in the church, and as you will see, even in the message to Christians, there is a danger that people hear and know but don't have the faith to leave the old and go. It's not easy. It's not easy being a Christian. My life's been hard. Look, I've had cancers twice. I've had a lot of other sicknesses. God heals me every time. I've been in prison. God delivers me. I was a sinner. God saved me. No, I'm going into that kingdom the hard way. So he's saying that just as with Israel, only a remnant were able to go in. So he says in verse 6, quite clear, seeing therefore it remains that some must enter, and those to whom it was first preached didn't go in because of unbelief. The danger is that the generations today are as bad as Israel. Unbelief. In verse 7, again, he limited a certain day, saying in David, today, after so long a time as it said today, if you will hear his voice, don't harden your hearts. In verse 8, for if Jesus had given them rest, then he would not have afterward have spoken of another day. So what he's really saying is that Jesus himself, when he came, was absolutely clear in this message that just as Israel had stood on the borders of the promised land and by faith didn't go in, so even at the time of Jesus, when he came, offering a way of escape, a way of salvation, a way of deliverance, Israel as a nation rejected. The Jews rejected Christ, crucified him. So, as right from the time of David, he's saying, today, if you don't harden your hearts, you can receive. But then he qualifies it by saying that in verse 8, if Jesus had given them the rest, in other words, if the kingdom had come in the time of Jesus, and remember, the disciples expected it, because the interesting thing is that when Jesus had died and risen from the grave in those 40 days, when he's talking to the Jews and to the disciples, and promising the coming of the Holy Spirit on the 50th day, because he was seen alive for 40 days, that's the significance, but on the 50th day, he said that the Holy Spirit would come, and the immediate reaction was to the disciples was, will you at this time restore the kingdom to Israel? In other words, when the Holy Spirit is come, is that the moment when we enter into the Millennium Rest? No, we're still waiting for that. That's what he's talking about. So, in verse 8, if Jesus had given them that rest, if Jesus had fulfilled the promise 2,000 years ago, there would be no future. And if he had done it, he would not have said that there is yet a day coming. So it's no use us looking back and saying that we're living in a whole new period because Jesus has come and ushered in the kingdom. He's ushered in the kingdom, but we have not yet entered.
In David Hathaway's new book, A Firm Foundation, Strength for Now and for Eternity, David will guide you through the Apostle Paul's letters to the Philippians, Colossians, and Philemon. David has written this book to strengthen your faith at a time when everything around us is being shaken. Join David as he delves deep into the truths of the Bible. Order David's book, A Firm Foundation, by visiting our website, eurovision.org.uk/shop. Thank you for listening to the Power of Faith broadcast with David Hathaway. We would love to hear from you. Contact us by visiting eurovision.org.uk. Also available online are many free teaching resources to help you on your walk with God. David has written many faith-building books to encourage and inspire. Order these online today. Each month, David ministers online and in person. Our ministry is only possible because of the faithful support of so many people. For details on our evangelism and humanitarian relief work, visit eurovision.org.uk. Thank you again for listening.